All right, everyone, welcome back to another Monday Night Live. This is the first live in the new house. I got my buddy Dell, and of course, we got Gary back with us tonight. Gary, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Good, good. Thanks for coming on, Dell. Good to see you again. It's been a little bit since we've chat because you've had a busy summer as well as I have, but it's good to see you, friend.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute. It's good to see all you guys, both y'all.
Yeah,
So
and
I'm particularly excited to see Gary.
yeah, because
Oh
why,
yeah.
Gary? What's going on in your world right now, Gary?
Well, tomorrow is the release of book 2 in my Case Younger series. There we go. My man Dale's got a copy. I got my copy right here.
Nice.
So it's officially released tomorrow. That's book 2 in the Case Younger series. Book 1 being Homecoming, uh, and then the trilogy gets wrapped up in April of 2026 with book 3.
That is
Very cool.
awesome. That
How
is
does it
Yeah, it's
awesome.
feel to
exciting.
release the second book?
You know what? It makes me a little nervous, because the first one was received so well, and the reviews are great. It's already been optioned by Lifelike Entertainment in Hollywood. They're turning it into a screenplay. Yeah, it's crazy.
Congrats.
So, all that momentum gets built up on the first book, and now the second one's getting ready to come out. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh boy, I hope people enjoy it.
Yeah, let's talk about that news. It's already been picked up by Hollywood. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, so it's been optioned. So I've been doing a lot of research on this because I got really excited, but then I always try to quell that a little bit, because I have a tendency to go overboard. So it was funny to me that I found out 85% of movies are based on books, but fewer than 1% of books ever get made into a movie. So and the you can get optioned, like I am now, and that's fantastic. But it doesn't mean necessarily that screenplay that they're turning your book into is going to get sold to Hollywood, and somebody's going to think that the story's compelling enough to turn it into a movie. But it's a step in that direction, and it's very exciting. And the guy who's working on it just came off of a big high. He did a documentary about the Titan sub implosion on Netflix, which was top 3 on Netflix for a while. I just watched it last night. Phenomenal. But anyway, he works for Lifelike Productions out in Hollywood. He's got a few movies, a bunch of documentaries and stuff under his belt. And yeah, he was connected to me through a friend of mine that I met when I was on the television show Top Shot on the History Channel. And he read the book, the first book, Homecoming, and said that he loved it. He compared it to like Justified, the TV show Justified, and that kind of small town, feel, that vibe, inside of a thriller story. And he was really taken by it and decided he wanted to turn it into a screenplay. So that's where it's at right now.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. How did
Yeah.
it fall in his hands again?
Okay, so years ago, I was on a television show on the History Channel called Top Shot, and I became good friends with a couple of the field producers, the guys that used to just like set us up on the hill behind the house and interview us and ask us questions about the challenges or whatever. And he, over time, that guy moved up, in Hollywood. His name's Eric, great dude. And when I wrote this book, I just reached out to him. It was like, hey man, I wrote a book, and not for nothing, but I'd like to get it in the hands of somebody over there, in Hollywood. I had no idea how this works, where to start. I just know this guy from Top Shot. So, I told him, hey, let me put this in somebody's hands to see if it could be possibly, cinematic, turned into a movie or a streaming show or something. So he gave me the name of Jude, who's the guy who runs Lifelike Entertainment, and Jude read it and loved it. So it's just kind of a friend of a friend kind of thing there from years ago when I was on that television show on the History Channel. But it's working out, and people really seem to be taken to it, and everybody that's read it so far, says that they think it would make a phenomenal movie. They'd love to see it on the big screen, and I think that's pretty much every writer's dream. So we'll see how it goes.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And I think that's what kind of makes this series kind of stand out is it's different. It's different, but it's
Yeah.
also kind of what I think people want to see. They want to read. Because if you want like some international espionage traveling to here, Africa, to Europe, to all. There are tons of those. Like literally, this genre is awash in it. So when you can find something that brings that level of action, that level of heart, that level of character development, but it's set in a domestic environment, that makes it something different. And it's really timely because, the villains, the antagonists in this book, both book one and book two, they're linked, obviously. That's real stuff. I mean, as much as we'd like to believe these sort of things don't happen here in America, tragically they do. So, yeah, tell us a little bit more about that, my man.
Well, I worked for 19 years as a Federal Air Marshal, and I did a lot of reading. So I'd go through, a couple of books a week, in most cases. And, like you said, the market's kind of flooded. And I love those books. I love those stories. The guy that's like the super soldier kind of dude who's answerable only to the president, and he works for this super secret task force and things like that. There are little elements of that in my books, but I try to keep it realistic, and I try to keep it, like you said, domestic, where, if I'm just, I'm Gary Quesenberry from Carroll County, Virginia. Say I don't have the background or the experience that I've had, and I'm reading these books, and I'm reading this book about this dude who's a super soldier answerable only to the president and stuff like that. That's great and it's entertaining, but I would rather read something that's more relatable, that puts me in that feel, that vibe, that thriller vibe, but is more relatable to me as somebody just from, some small town in middle America that's trying to do something good, but not necessarily doing the right things. Like he's not perfect. He makes a lot of mistakes. And as the books progress, from book one to book three, he's a smart guy, and he doesn't have any superpowers, and he makes mistakes, and he starts seeing the repercussions of those mistakes and how it's affecting the people that he's trying to reconnect with. And that makes him work all the harder to get it right. And it's not something that's easy. And it's not something that comes natural to a lot of people, despite how much training you've had in the past. So I wanted to kind of relay that, in my writing, that, it's going to get messy. This dude might get his ass kicked a few times, and he's going to make bad decisions. And I feel like that helps keep the reader in the mind frame, because if you create Superman on the page, nothing's going to happen to him, right? He's like impervious, and you can put him in these these little scenarios where you're kind of worried about his safety, but he may come out of that okay. And I feel like in my books, especially the third one, you don't know that about Case Younger. You don't know if he's going to be okay. You don't know if he's going to make a decision that's going to get somebody killed, and you're kind of rooting for him because you relate to him and you like him, but it's anybody's guess as to how that's going to affect everybody else in his life.
And that's a really key point. And it's that you have this genre that is awash. The military / espionage thriller. It's awash with these super individuals, right? And I'm not going to name names, but there's some of them that you're like, yeah, under those circumstances, that is how it would play out. But there's also a lot of them that it just would never work that way. It just wouldn't. But that's the thing about Case, and I think a lot of readers recognize that too. And granted, part of reading is escaping the mundane reality of your life, like getting up at 4 a.m. to feed the dogs or whatever. But that's the great thing about Case Younger is it's like, no, that's about as real as it gets. I mean, I think just about anyone who picks this book up is going to read it and say, I can totally relate to this guy. Utterly.
Sure. Yeah.
Not merely in terms of like his exploits are not so out there that they're unbelievable, but like he's got relationship issues. He's got family issues. He's got all of that stuff. And I think that's the joy to behold with this series. It's great.
I really appreciate that. And it's funny because, I go through these books so many times during the editing process, And the more I go through them, the more I learn about these characters, because I always thought it was a bunch of, I don't know, like woo woo kind of stuff that, just let your characters tell you where they want to go. They'll speak to you and they'll tell you which direction they need to move in. But the more I got to writing and the more I read, the stuff that I was putting on paper, in hindsight, it's true. Like, these characters that you develop take on kind of a life of their own. And at some point I would be writing something and I'd look at it and be like, Case wouldn't do that. I might do something like that, but I don't think Case would. So I got to change it, because this isn't me. This is an amalgamation of these people that I've had in my life, through work and my personal life and, in high school and things. And in book 2, it starts out with Case Younger kicking in doors, and taking out bad guys that were left over from the first book. But then, very quickly that changes to all he wants to do is go back home to Pikesville, sit on his front porch with his girlfriend, Sam, and go to his buddy's baseball game. You know what I mean? That's what he's wanting to do. But, there's some unknowns out there that have crept up because of the actions he took in the first book that he's unaware of. And, the mistakes that he made in book 1 really come back to haunt him in book 2. And he realizes the full kind of consequences of what he's done. And then at the end, I'm sure, you already know because you read it, but at the end of this book, you're going to want to know immediately, like, okay, where is he going and what's he doing now? Because that switch in his head has flipped. And at the end of book 2, and he knows he's got to go take care of a bigger issue if he ever wants to find the peace that he was looking for to start with in that first book.
Absolutely. And hey, brother, that's how you keep readers reading.
Yeah.
It's like cliffhanger.
Yep.
Brother, don't let me ask all the questions.
No,
it's your turn.
I'm just gonna say, Ali Sid01 on YouTube said she loved the first book. So I got news for you. You're gonna love the second one too. It's even more action packed and intense, and Gary really kind of cranks it up a notch in a way that is very, I don't know, Del, what would you say? I would say it's very experienced. Like, this is not the second novel. This is the 15th.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point. There's clearly, you read it and you're like, I don't know this Gary Quesenberry, but he's got it. He's got it, and he's been studying and working hard. It shows.
Well, I just came back in June. I was up in New York for Thriller Fest. And that was the first time I've ever attended. And it just so happened that I was picked up as one of their debut authors, and I attended the debut author breakfast and stuff like that. And, you talk to all these, I think we were in the biggest debut author class that they've had in the history of the international thriller writers.
Wow.
So I think there were like 32 or 33 debut authors this year at the debut authors breakfast. And, you make friends and you talk to people and you pick their brains, and we're all going through the same things, the same struggles, trying to get your book out there in front of people and, just crossing your fingers, hoping that people enjoy it. And, without fail, everyone I talked to said the same thing. And when they get guys like you in their corner, that can help get word out on the book, and that are kind of, their mind is just kind of in that genre and they love that type of reading. And you get that honest feedback from people like that. That's the most valuable thing that a writer could ever put in their toolbox, is that feedback. And I don't know if you know this or not, Jeff, but like Dale helped me out on the second book because, the two characters, they're mentioned briefly in book 1. And then and at the end of book 1, Matt and Ross. Well, Matt and Ross are cases from the Air Marshal Service. And at the end of, after the hijacking in book 1, they decide they're going to go off and do contract work. And they invite Case to come with them because they're buddies. And, Case doesn't want anything to do with it. He wants to just go home, reconnect with his family, and try to live a quiet life. And that doesn't work out the way he wants it to. But Dale actually helped me out because when it came to writing book 2, I had to put them in a different situation. Because I saw myself going down that rabbit hole that we talked about earlier about this super secret, agency that's answerable only to the president. And when Dale read it, he's like, I love the story. I love the book, but this piece right here is a little unrealistic in it. People that know, it's going to pull them out of the story. And for me, I don't care if you're, a retired CIA operative, or if you're, Joe Schmo that stocks shelves down here at the food line that just enjoys reading the thriller, I want that person to feel like they're in a situation with this protagonist, like it's realistic. So, Dale actually helped me out a lot on the whole thing with putting Matt and Ross where they needed to be in the contracting world and what would realistically happen, with an agency like that had these like special missions, and how Case could possibly fit into that. So, I was just kind of making it all up. I'm like, what the hell? It's fiction. I can write this however I want it. But at the end of the day, without guys like Dale, and you, Jeff, to give me feedback on that, it's, it makes for the end user. So I really appreciate everything that you guys put into this stuff too. I can't take 100% of the credit.
that is very, very kind. But you do bring up something that I think is really true about this community, whether you're a published author or like Jeff and myself still writing because you haven't gotten over that obstacle just yet.
Yeah, it's right. It's right there. That hump.
Yeah. Right there. Right there. Anyway,
I don't want to bust y'all's bubble, but that hump just keeps going. Like I'm still trying to get over the hump, So we'll see.
So what you say is once you get to this summit, you look out and go, "Oh yeah, there's a bigger one."
Oh no, another
there's
one.
Another one over there. But
I don't know if either one of you were ever at Fort Ord back in the day, California. There was a raceway, there was a motorcycle race, Laguna Seca, and we used to do our 25-mile ruck marches around Laguna Seca. And there was one hill in the back of that place. It's like right smack in the middle. So you're like 13 miles into a 25-miler, and you hit this hill, and I mean it was a beast. And you're walking and you're walking and you're walking and you feel like you've been going forever. And you can kind of see like where you can tell it's getting ready to flatten out, and you come around a curve and you can see down in the valley, and nope, the hill keeps going up this way. And it was so demoralizing. And you're like, Jesus Christ, is this ever going to end? And writing is that hill in Laguna Seca, I'm convinced.
Oh, I believe it. But you know what? What's great about it is we really are part of a community. Whether you're a published author with one book or 7 books, or like Jeff and me, you're just almost there. It really is a community that people will help you because they recognize that, one, how hard it is, and 2, somebody helped them out, and 3, even if you are successful, it doesn't mean they're not going to be successful. Just
right.
Because they buy your book doesn't mean they're not going to buy this other person's book.
Exactly.
And like Tim Hendricks, right? Good friend of ours. I had just done a beta for him, and he goes, "Hey, if there's anything I can ever do for you," and I'm like, "All right, well, you asked." So I sent him the current thing I'm working on, and he came back with some really, really great feedback. And it's like just that suggestion, I know dialed up that one chapter so much more.
Oh yeah,
and that's the beauty of it. It's like we hope each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that I learned, like being at Thriller Fest, I'm surrounded, by writers, people that are just trying to break into the industry. David Baldacci was there, John Grisham was there. I got to meet and spoke to extensively one of my heroes, David Morrell. He wrote First Blood. Yeah.
Oh, you're so lucky.
I've got my copy right there signed by David Morrell setting up, beside the office. And I spoke to him for quite a while. And there's everybody that I spoke to was just so kind and so free, like with the advice and the help. And, David Morrell said, listen, because we're talking about all the authors, I started the conversation out like, I admire your work so much. I loved, Brotherhood of the Rose and First Blood and, all stuff that you've written. And you created this character that took on a life of its own, quite literally. Like it is completely different than what he wrote in that original novel, but it just took on a life of his own. And that takes something special in your writing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
He said, don't try to emulate me or, what this person wrote or that person wrote. He said, don't be a second-rate version of someone else. Be the first-rate version of you. So write what write from your experience. put that on paper, and then let's see how people feel about it. So, it was a great conversation, and I was just felt very honored to be part of that community and just, have those people offering their advice and stuff so freely.
That is fantastic. That is fantastic.
Speaking of fantastic, I just dropped the link for the book in the comments, and somebody over on YouTube already pre-ordered it. So we're selling books.
Whoop, whoop.
So go ahead, Joe.
Okay.
Hey, so earlier, Gary, you had mentioned something about, I think you were talking about self-editing and whatnot. Are there any particular tools or formats or even software that you use when you're doing your own self-editing?
Well, I edit as I go. I have a hard time mentally moving on to another chapter when I know the one before it isn't up to stuff. So I kind of edit as I go. And once I get it to where I'm comfortable with it and I know I can fill some more of the story in later, I'll move on. But, I'm strictly a Word document guy. And, that's changed a lot lately, where you can put in like the AI prompts and stuff to give you like other words for things and stuff like that. But usually, I use a Word document, and I have Grammarly, and Grammarly pretty much, just helps me out if I need to rephrase something or I'm looking for another word. And then I've got my, actually I've got my computer sitting on it now, so my camera's higher, but I've actually got my big thesaurus and stuff that I keep on my desk, just a hardbound thesaurus that I use all the time. That and
That's
the
awesome.
elements of style. So, yeah.
That is awesome. Elements of style. No kidding. That is old school, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, but nothing fancy. I don't use anything fancy. Yeah, I kind of got an old school office here. Like, it's I got Post-it notes and things that I stick up here and there to remind me of things. I'm just now kind of getting my head wrapped around the calendar on my computer. So.
That's awesome. Hey, so something else you mentioned, and I know you just mentioned in passing, but we want to know. Top Shot. Tell us about that experience, because I will tell you straight up, that is my favorite reality TV show of all time. I loved it. I wish they would have just kept going for like the next 20 years. You're not going to run out of guys. But yeah, tell us about your experience, because I personally loved it. I know Jeff loved it.
Yeah.
Tell us about it. We want to know.
Well, so I was working as a Federal Air Marshal when the show came out, and one of my good buddies, and a guy that I love to shoot with, world record holder, as a matter of fact, JJ Ricasa, if you guys know who he is. He I don't know if he still holds it or not, but he had the world record on the steel challenge, pistol challenge. Great dude, just so personable. Well, he was gone for a while, and he came back, and he was like, yeah, I did this TV show. I was working in Atlantic City at the time. I was the lead firearms instructor for the entirety of the Federal Air Marshal Service. So I knew how to shoot. Like, I understand marksmanship, and I grew up in the Blue Ridge Mountains, so you're raised around that kind of thing. And not just pistols, but archery and long guns and, primitive weapons and things like that. So anyway, JJ comes back. He's like, dude, you should totally put in for this show. I just did the first season. It was so much fun. You can win some money. You get to shoot. You get to hang out with all these cool dudes, and everything. So he goes, you should put in for it. So season 2, the announcement comes out for season 2. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. And then I left Atlantic City, after a few years working as an instructor there, and I went to the Cleveland field office. Season 3 rolls around of Top Shot. And finally I decided, okay, I'll put in for it. So I put in for it, and I think they had a couple of thousand applications or something like that for that third season. Every season they had more and more applications because the show was becoming more and more popular. It was crazy, how big it blew up. Well, I got selected as one of the final 100, and I think it was 100. And they took the final 100 people out to LA, and they took you out to a gun range one day. They did a psych eval. They did a drug test. They put you in front of a camera to make sure you could speak and not lock up. And you talk to the producers, and they play these little mind games with you and stuff, just to see how you react to it. And I think maybe what level of drama you could bring to the table.
Yeah, you got to be good TV, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, the way they ended up doing season 3 was they wanted to pit each contestant against their kind of one of their peers. So they had 2 female competitive shooters. They had 2 police officers. They had 2 federal agents, and that was me and my buddy Jared Grimes, and that was season 3. So Jared's on blue team, I'm on red team, and they keep pitting us against each other. And we were best friends. We worked together in Atlantic City. So, you go through the competitions. Every competition, you have one team challenges the other team. Whoever loses, they got to nominate 2 people to go to elimination. Those people go head to head. Whoever loses goes home, right? So that's the structure of the show. 16 people. At a certain point, they merge you down to one team, then it's individual competitions. So I did the 3rd season. I finished in 3rd place. I went all the way to the final episode of the show, and then missed a shot that put me out. And it was my fault, nothing I could have done about it. I just didn't make a shot. And then I came back for the All-Star season because I guess they liked me on season 3. So I came back for the All-Star season. Nobody on the All-Star season had ever won it. It was just like fan favorites, I guess. And they put us in a house and put us through it again. And I finished 3rd place again. So every time I was on the show, I'd go to the final episode. I would get right to the finale and I'd cank it. And with the All-Star season, I think it was a FNFL or Mosin Nagant. I think it was a Mosin Nagant. You had to run up this hill to different stations, shoot different weapons, at each station. Very last station, I am on track to take it, and I jam the weapon up. So, fast enough to get my shot off quicker than the guy that came after me. So that sent me home. But it was a great experience. I had a ton of fun, made some fantastic friends, and a little fun fact for you. Phil Morden was on my season in season 3. He actually came back for the All-Star season and won the All-Star season. So he won the All-Stars, Phil. Phil Morden went to joined the Navy after Top Shot, became a Navy SEAL, did all kinds of really cool shit after Top Shot. And then he got out of the Navy, and him and his wife have a production company, and they did the book trailer for book 1, Homecoming. That's his company.
Wow.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it all, it was good to have him involved in this, because he's a good buddy of mine and everything. And I loved having him and his wife involved and, reconnecting with one of my old Top Shot buddies to do that for me. And that book video actually won a Telly Award. And he did it all. And you know what he did it for? He told me if I made it, he'd do it for me if I made him a longbow. So I made him a longbow.
No kidding.
Yeah,
that is awesome. Damn, you have so many talents. I feel like a hobo.
No, it's not. It's just I can't get anything to stick. So just jump from thing to thing.
How many pounds was the longbow?
Olympic leapfroggers. I don't know. I might be the next Olympic break dancer or something. You never know.
I don't know how to respond to that. So tell us, it's weird with like some seasons, there was a little bit of, not controversy is not the right word, but there'd be a little bit of friction in the house, right?
Yeah.
And, we all spend time in the military. We all know that you're bringing together people from different, backgrounds, parts of the country, ethnicities, beliefs, cultures, yada, yada. And you plug all those people together, you're going to have some degree of friction.
Oh, yeah.
But I always wondered while I'm watching, because there were some seasons where there were certain individuals who were a bit more fractious than others. Was what we saw on the screen, how much of it was like, no, that was really what happened, or no, it was worse than that, or no, they played it up? Tell us about it.
Well, I think there's an equal mix. Like the people that you saw on that show, aside from a couple, I think the personality that you got on the show was their personality. That's who that person was. And there was a couple that they, that they might have made look a little worse or a little better than they were. But it was all real. There was nothing scripted. There was nothing where, well, okay, I'll have to tell you the story sometime. But there was one little scripted thing in season 3. If you remember the guy Jake, that everybody disliked in the house, the Navy SEAL guy, Jake Zwig.
The one who went and lived outside.
Yeah, he was going to go live outside and everything. So he quit. And that was going to throw everything off. That was going to throw the whole thing off. And it did. It did for me because I beat the dude named Mike, the one they called Big Mike. He was a competitive pistol shooter. I put him out with a pistol. I put him out, sent him home. Well, then Jake quit. They didn't know what to do because they didn't want to cut it a whole episode, so they needed another shooter. So they bought Mike back. And then Mike ends up being the one that put me out, even though I put him out first. You know what I'm saying? It was a little bittersweet when I left because I left, at the hands of a guy that I'd already put out once. So, but what do you do? It's Hollywood. It's not like a real, I'm taking this to the board. I'm going to fight it. Kind of thing. Fuck it. That was fun. I went home.
File a grievance. I want to file a grievance.
Yeah. Hear from mine.
So, that's another thing where, and I'm sure there's people who watch the show who had a fair amount of firearms experience. But even if you had a fair amount of firearms experience, there were some of those challenges that I'm like, well, I've never gone down a zip line backwards and had to shoot at things.
Yeah.
I mean, who has?
Yeah.
The wheel of death where they strap into the Ferris wheel and it spins around and you got to shoot at the targets with a H&K MP5, I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, like I cannot see literally any tactical situation where you'd be in that have to do that. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that stuff. What was that like?
Well, the Ferris wheel thing. I actually thought about it once as a Federal Air Marshal. I'm like, if there was a hijacking and this thing's going down and it's spinning uncontrollably, I've been here before. Like I know how to shoot in this.
Somehow I find myself.
Yeah, it's so unrealistic that it was crazy, but it made for great TV. So, some of the challenges they had a great group of guys and girls there, that worked with the firearms, and with like the armors and the weapons masters and stuff like that. So, because it wasn't just guns. I mean, we were chucking rocks and shooting bows and throwing.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It wasn't my season, but one season they had blowguns. Like if they had anything to do with marksmanship. They tried to fit it in there. And I think that's why it was so entertaining for so many people, because it wasn't just about the guns. And then even if you didn't like it, even if you didn't care about the guns, it's still fun to watch somebody get their ass strapped to a Ferris wheel, that's going to do like 30 miles an hour in a circle while they're shooting at these exploding targets. But, the funnest challenges for me were the ones that were reminiscent of other things. Like I really enjoyed the archery challenge that we did where we had to skip arrows off of a ramp to hit a moving target. Like that's not something you would do if you were out hunting, but it's totally something me and my little brother would have done when we were kids, you know what I mean, with the bow in the backyard. Like, hey, I bet I can skip this off that rock and stick it in that tree. You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing we did when we were kids. So I really enjoyed those type of challenges. And then I enjoyed the challenges that kind of brought me back to my military days. Like in season 3, there was one where we ran an obstacle course. It was freezing that day. And we had to jump in some water and these AK-47s at these exploding targets about 100 yards down range. That everybody's sitting there shivering and complaining. And I'm like, oh, I love this. Like this is, I can still kind of feel a little bit of that in myself, that I want some of that kind of thing.
I wish it sucked more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think when you get our age, you look back at those times in your life and you look for little opportunities like that Top Shot thing. If anything, just to prove to yourself that you still have a little bit of that in you, that you can still tough that out and make the shot where it counts, stuff like that. Yeah. So it was an experience. And the cool thing about it for me was the coolest part of it was when it all aired, they wanted you to have these viewing parties, so we would go to Buffalo Wild Wings. At the time I was living in Medina, Ohio, and we'd go to Buffalo Wild Wings and have the whole big back room, and there would be 100 people shoved in there, just all these people from the community, fans of the show. They knew I lived there in town. We're having these viewing parties on, it was like Thursday nights or something that came on. And then afterwards, everybody's bringing their kids up and having me sign pictures and targets and stuff like that for them. And, it was so cool just to be involved in that part of it. But at the same time, my daughters were both in high school at the time and dating. So it kind of helped, me. when the little boy's dad be like, hey, her dad was on Top Shot, right?
Yeah, I was third place. I am not joking around here.
It doesn't matter how far you run.
They've seen me make shots on TV from a mile away. So, run if you want.
It's doable.
That's awesome.
I can make it. What's it doing?
Oh man, I love
it. That is very cool.
Yeah.
No, I totally.
It's great.
I'm sorry, Jeff. You want to say something?
No, go ahead.
No, I totally hear what you're saying, man. I really do. My youngest son is currently going through basic training, and he's a cadet at West Point, and I know he's hating probably, because you're getting screamed at, you're hungry, you're going through the gas chamber. I think they did that this past week, and that when you're that young person, it's terrible, but you're like, I would love to go through the gas chamber again.
Yeah, the best story.
I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys. So I've still got my old VHS tape that they gave me in 1988 when I left basic training of us coming out of the gas chamber and doing the old course. Like there was somebody out there, I remember, with one of those big, like shoulder-mounted camcorders, and they were filming everything all the time. Put it on a VHS tape. But yeah, where's your son going through basic training right now?
Well, it's part of West Point. So, and what's funny is because halfway through they get like a 4-hour break and they can call home. He was telling me about it.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that sounds exactly like enlisted basic training, really.
Yeah.
Because I went through enlisted basic in '86, and it's like, no, what he's describing is basically the same thing.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because my son's a drill sergeant now.
Nice.
Yeah, he's a drill sergeant now. He's working. He just started with his second class, and he's down at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. So and I tell you what, man, that I knew, going through basic training, what it was like from the perspective of a private. I see these drill sergeants. All I know is they're there all the time. They're there when I wake up. They're there when they never sit down. They never drink. They never eat. Like who are these monsters? Well, my son's one of them now, and he, it's kind of fun talking to him. It's kind of fun talking to him because he gives me the behind the curtain kind of thing, what goes on with him. He's like, oh no, we sit down and we drink and we eat, and we just don't let the privates see it. We have a system for it and things like that. So it's just wearing him out because he's got to be there when they go to bed. He's got to be there when they wake up. He gets maybe 1 day off a week, depending on how stupid they get. So
that's tough.
It's it's tough, man. It's really tough. And he was given the opportunity to do that. Because as a staff sergeant, you got to do staff duty.
Yeah.
So he didn't want to be a recruiter. So he was like, I'll do this. And he did it for I'm very proud of him because he did it for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
Like he wants to make an impact on new soldiers coming into the Army.
That's awesome.
So just keeping that mindset and that frame of mind through that whole thing will do wonders for him. So I'm very proud of him.
What I never understood was how they were so alert and sharp at 3:30 in the morning. Like
right, yeah.
Like just like they had been up for hours and they were ready to go, and just energized.
The secret is they're not alert and they're not ready to go. They're more alert and more ready to go than you are. So it seems that way to you as just a scared shitless private,
Yeah.
I was 17 when I went through basic training. So I was terrified.
Oh yeah. Where did you go to basic?
I was field artillery, so I went through basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Just south of me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
just south of me. Fort Sill's nice. It's big place.
Yeah, it's a
Where'd
big
you
place.
go?
You know,
I went to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio in May and June in South Texas, which was a horrible, horrible decision. It was 100 degrees every day for 6 straight weeks. It was hot. You ever done push-ups on hot asphalt? Oh my God, that was not fun. If I could do it again, I would go in fall.
yeah, there you go. There you go. Perfect weather. Perfect weather was always forward California. Like that fog would roll in the afternoons and stuff, but it's like San Diego, just sunny and 70 degrees all the time. You know, it's just you're right there on the bay. I could see the ocean from my barracks window. You know, it was kind of awesome. Now I didn't get to see it much because we were in the field 90% of the time, but when I was in the barracks, I had a fantastic view.
That's awesome.
Go ahead, Del. Go ahead. No, go ahead, man.
So I was gonna say. So what's next?
Yep, that's what I was gonna say.
You're
reading my mind.
You've been a Federal Air Marshal, a TV star. You're a published author. Apparently, you hand fashion longbows in your free time. Yeah. What the heck is next for Gary Quesenberry?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Well, you know, I've got this third book that's kind of dominating, you know, everything right now. Mm-hmm. And we're in the editing stages of that. We just finished the edits. Now we're going into proofreading and the layout and the cover design and things like that. That book will come out April the 1st. And then, you know, of course, the month before and the month after, you've got kind of the promotion stuff and the podcast, you know, string and things like that. But I don't know. You know, once I finish that book, I've got 4 outlines written for more books. And there's one that is I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to get locked into something and be like, oh, I'd love to read that. And then I feel like I got to write it. You know what I mean? But I've got an idea. I've got an idea for a spinoff series for one of the characters in this series. So, you know, like right now I'm still agentless. I don't have an agent. You know, I've got a publisher and they took submissions without agents. So, and when I went to Thriller Fest, I didn't really have anything to pitch, you know, because my books are already published. So I think I want to keep going to Thriller Fest. And I think what I'm going to do is, you know, as this third book in this series is getting finished up, I'm starting on this new series. I want it to be a trilogy and it's going to feature Trevor Campbell, who's just a teenager, you know, in the first book. Yeah. You guys know who Trevor is. And he plays a huge role in book 3. So, you know, book 3, there's a lot of flashbacks to Trevor, you know, or not Trevor, but to Trevor's mother, who's mentioned in the first book. And there's a little domestic missing persons element there that all gets tied up, you know, at the end of book 3. And I feel like it's a pretty satisfying story arc for everybody involved. But in the prologue of book 3, it kind of flashes forward a little bit into the future. And now Trevor's doing something else. And I think I want to pick that ball up and run with it, you know, in a different direction for Trevor and maybe, you know, do it. But my daughter threatened me when she read the first book. She threatened me with physical harm if anything ever happened to Trevor. She's like, if you ever hurt Trevor, I will come after you. And I believe she would. So, you know, and you know, I didn't want to do anything to put Trevor in it. I put him in a little jeopardy, you know, just to make it tense, but I wouldn't want anything to happen to Trevor. So I'm looking at a spinoff. That's kind of my plan next, I think, is to write that manuscript. And then once I have it to the point where I feel like it's where it needs to be, I'll have an established, you know, trilogy with this, and we'll see how the option thing goes with Hollywood. And that may give me a little bit of a springboard to get an agent and maybe a bigger publisher for a new trilogy. So I think that might be the direction I go.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Direction at all.
I definitely, you know, I'm working on that beta.
Yeah.
My deck is cleared. It's the next thing I've got going.
Okay.
But yeah,
that third book.
You've got what's that?
For the third book in this series you're talking about?
Yes. I didn't know if I was allowed to talk about it on video, but
I talk about it all the time. I don't have to or anything. I don't think my publisher knows what the hell I'm talking about most of the time. So.
Oh yeah, I understand that completely. No, I'm loving it. Hopefully I will have it done by the end of the month. But
Nice.
yeah, I'm excited to see where your career goes, man. And Thriller Fest is great.
It is.
You know,
Yeah.
ITW is a wonderful organization. You know, anytime you have the opportunity to have everybody together like that,
Yeah.
heaven forbid anything would happen, because all of a sudden the entire genre would be wiped out.
Oh yeah.
That's a story.
Yeah. Tired.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No more books.
Yeah.
No, it's a fantastic, wonderful place. The only reason I wasn't there this year was because I wanted to spend that time with my son before he shipped off. But I fully intend to be next year. Brother, I am so excited for you. I'm so happy for you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just saying I'm going to be there next year. So if you're going to be there, we're going to have to link up. I'll introduce you to some of the people I met this year, and make the best of it. I want to bring my daughter-in-law too, because she's a writer. My son, who's a drill sergeant, his wife, she's a writer, and she got a fantastic idea for a book that I'm really trying to nudge her in that direction, with. So
Awesome.
See how it goes.
So what you thinking, Jeff?
I think Thriller Fest is great too. I'm glad you went and glad you had a good time. I couldn't be there either because we were in the middle of moving. But yeah, Thriller Fest is great. BoucherCon is great. Those are two great communities that I think really support the genre and the authors, and there's a deep connection with the fans, and I think that's really important in today's age of publishing, where it's getting harder and harder to get ideas published. I think it's great that we still have those two conventions, plus many others. Killer Nashville. There's all kinds of different, conventions, even at the state level. Oklahoma and Texas. I know Colorado do several.
Yeah.
It's good that they're doing all those things because it really gives you a connection to the audience and a connection to your fellow authors, and to learn and have that community, because today's world's kind of tough. We're in the world of scrolling on social media. You've got about 10 seconds to capture somebody's, interest, or they're scrolling up or swiping left or clicking off, and that's tough. That's tough to sell books.
You lose them. Yeah, you lose them. And when I started writing, that's one of the things that I tried to keep in mind. I wrote this series. I don't know if you can see it or not behind me, but I wrote a series about situational awareness. And I talk a lot in those books about people's attention spans and how that affects their awareness and how they interact with their environment. Mm-hmm. So, as a Federal Air Marshal, one of my favorite things to do was sit down with a good book, something I was excited about reading. And when you get like 1 or 2 pages in, and you just have to keep turning the page. And if I'm on a red-eye flight from Vegas to DC and I'm still awake when everybody else is, which I had to be, but if it's easier for me to stay awake when everybody else is knocked out because I'm so enthralled in this book I'm reading, I knew that was a keeper. Like I'm not, that's one that's going on the shelf. So when I wrote this book, I tried to keep that attention span thing in mind. Like I need to grab a reader's attention quick. I need to make sure that when they get to the end of a chapter, they want to know what's happening, at the beginning of the next one. And I want the book to be short enough that it's not so daunting that they look at it like War and Peace and like, I will never get through that. This book here can be read, on a New York to LA flight, easy. And, hopefully it keeps, readers engaged and wanting to know what happens next, because what's going to get them into that next book and then the third book. And then they get to see how everything wraps up. And I'm excited to see. I think at the end of it, the one thing that I'm most excited about is hearing those reactions to the way it all ends. Not just the first book or the second book, but the story all together. So
awesome.
Yeah.
And I know we're promoting Get the Rights, but I will say Gary's other writing is just as good. Now it's not entertaining in the same way that this is, but I will say that from a professional perspective, as somebody who had a career in intelligence, and I occasionally do give presentations or seminars on certain things like situational awareness, Gary's stuff is tremendous. It covers so much but it's in a very digestible, very authentic way. And in some cases, I have like bought a whole bunch of Gary's books and given them out to people when I do this
I
type of
appreciate
seminar. So it's Gary is a again absurdly talented man who makes me feel like a hobo.
Come on now. I'm a hobo in writer's clothing.
No, I just wanted to give you a shout out in that regard, because that's that series of books. And the great thing is he breaks it down into just for most people in your day-to-day life, but then he also has one for business travelers. He has one for young people and parents, how they can best prep their kids for potential dangers they may encounter. It really is excellent work.
Well, it's a dangerous
I really
world.
appreciate that.
It's a dangerous world right now. It's a scary world. Like, there's stuff going on in my hometown right now that I never would have imagined would happen here, and it's going on here. Violence.
It's insane.
Stuff getting robbed.
Look at what happened in Cincinnati. Like you don't know what you're going to find yourself. You may be minding your own business.
Yeah.
30,000 in the air on a flight, and complete chaos just erupt around you. And it doesn't have to be a hijacking. It could be somebody that's pissed off because the person beside them took their socks off. You never know what's going to set people off anymore. So, that's why I wrote those books. When I was a Federal Air Marshal, I used to tell people all the time, people would reach out to me, like, especially when they found out I was a lead firearms instructor. And then after I got the Top Shot thing under my belt, I was kind of like the guest instructor or whatever, like, hey, we're bringing Gary Quesenberry in. So then I started teaching, and everybody would ask me the same thing. Like, what's the one piece of advice you can give somebody, in terms of personal defense, self-defense, firearms training or whatever, to keep them as safe as they can be? What's the one thing you want them all to walk away with? And I tell them all the same thing. I don't care what you carry. I don't care if you practice strip mall karate or you're a black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It doesn't matter to me. If you can't interact with, look at, decipher the cues that your environment's giving you to keep you safe, then it's all for nothing, because you can't effectively fight what you don't see coming. So that situational awareness piece has always, for me and for Federal Air Marshals in general, been like one of the foundational building blocks in the personal defense program. You got to know what's happening around you, especially in chaotic situations. Most people don't know what's going on around them when nothing's happening. So, there's zero level of awareness. And then if something's stressful, like you find yourself in the middle of that big brawl that happened in Cincinnati or something, and you're just trying to get your family out of it, you not knowing your environment is going to be detrimental to you getting out of that situation safely. So that's what those books are for, is to teach people how to look at and interpret the cues that they're getting from the environment to keep them safe.
Yeah, because it's happening everywhere. I mean, it's happening in places we didn't think it would ever happen. It's happening in broad daylight. It's happening at football games. Places where, for the most part, we used to be safe in our communities to go out and do things, and now people are getting bold. And I kind of wonder, if we've kind of lost our way. We used to be considerate of other people around us, and I feel like nowadays we've really gotten to a point where we're not concerned with the people around us. We're concerned with me, myself, and I, and that's why we take our socks off on an airplane. When it's like, listen, if you can't wait 2 hours to take your socks off, then what are you doing on an airplane? Like, have some consideration for your fellow neighbor, and you'll be shocked at how far that goes in regards to good relationships and getting along with people.
Right, exactly. Yeah, common courtesy goes a long way.
Sure does.
And that's one of the things, common courtesy, the ability to communicate effectively with one another, those are things that are becoming a thing of the past. And as long, everybody stays so locked into their little digital bubble that they create, anything that infringes upon that, they take as a threat. Like it's a threat to them, like I feel violated. I feel threatened. I get, terms that used to mean something like, trauma, and now everybody's traumatized over something, and it could be anything. It could be anything, and I get it. Like, there's the old saying, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. You know what I mean? and this person who the election didn't go the way they wanted it to, so now they're rage screaming in the forest with their circle of friends or whatever. That may be the worst thing. They don't know, anything outside of that. So I try not to be too judgmental about things you see.
Sure. Yeah, I get that totally. Well, Gary, before we let you go,
Some of the situations they get themselves into because of their own bad decisions. It's
Concur. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's hard to watch.
Yeah. Well, Gary, before we let you go, if you can still hear us, I think you're cutting out a little bit, but before we let you go, tell everybody where they can go find more about you, pick up the books, and kind of follow along.
So Gary, where can readers get their hands on a copy of Dead to Rights?
Are we still here?
Yeah, we're still here.
We still got you.
Can you hear us, brother?
Man, we might have lost
I
him
think
now.
I think we may have lost it, but I will say to everybody who's still out there, just get in your Google or whatever search platform you're using, type in Gary Quesenberry. I do know I think you can order them straight from his website. Yeah. Can you hear us? And if not, I know you can get it at Google. So.
Yeah, you can definitely go to Amazon and then type in his name, and you'll find it there for sure. I think
it's out tomorrow, August the 5th, and readers can.
That's right. It comes out tomorrow, August 5th.
Yeah, we still got him?
Yeah, August 5th.
August
I don't
5th.
know. I don't know if I'm here or not.
Yeah, we've been cutting out, but that's okay. We just wanted to make sure we got that final promo in there. Go get the book. It comes out tomorrow. Yeah. Go to his website. Go to Amazon. Go to your favorite retailer and ask for Dead to Rights, and pick up Homecoming if you haven't as well, because you got to read them both. They're fantastic reads.
I appreciate it, guys.
All right, we'll go offline, but thanks everybody for listening. You guys stay on here, and we'll go offline, and we'll chat for a few minutes to say goodbye. Appreciate you guys all listening. Make sure you like and subscribe, and come back next week for another great guest. Thanks, Del, for joining me. We'll see you guys.